The day Diane moved into our home, I noticed how Trent's eyes followed her movements instead of mine. It was subtle at first, the way my coffee mug appeared in her hands each morning, how my carefully chosen decorations disappeared one by one, replaced with her preferences. "That's just mom being mom," my husband would say, laughing off my concerns while she methodically erased me from my own life. I spent months shrinking myself, voice growing quieter as she grew louder, until that devastating moment when Trent looked me in the eyes and said, "She raised me. You can be replaced." They thought I'd break. Instead, I felt something crystallize inside me, cold, clear purpose. If my husband believed his mother would always come first, then I would give them exactly what they wanted, but on my terms. And they would soon discover that a woman pushed to invisibility sees everything. I used to believe in the perfect life. You know the one, where you marry your college sweetheart, buy a charming house with a white picket fence, and spend weekends planning your future together over homemade pancakes and coffee. For a while, Trent and I had exactly that. Our little three-bedroom in Portland's quiet suburbs was everything I dreamed of when I quit my corporate design job to pursue freelance interior styling. "This is it," Trent had whispered in my ear on moving day, his accountant's precision momentarily abandoned as he spun me around our empty living room. Our forever home. Forever lasted exactly 8 months before his mother's lease ended. "It's just temporary, Cora," he assured me, boxes of Diane's belongings already stacked in our garage. "Mom just needs a place to stay until she finds her own." 3 months, tops. That was 3 months ago. Now, as I stir tonight's pasta sauce, I can feel Diane's eyes on my back, analyzing my every move like I'm a contestant on some cooking show she's reluctantly judging. "Smells interesting," she says, the word interesting hanging between us like a guillotine. Trent always liked it better when I used rosemary instead of thyme. I force a smile. "I'll keep that in mind for next time."
But there's always a next time with Diane.
A next suggestion. A next improvement. A next reminder that she raised the man I married, and therefore knows him better than I ever could. The dining table, my vintage find that I'd lovingly restored, now has a tablecloth I never purchased. The walls that were once adorned with black and white photographs from our honeymoon now feature Trent's childhood pictures. Slowly, piece by piece, my home has become a shrine to her son's past rather than our shared future. "Mom's just trying to help," Trent says later that night, after I mention the rearranged living room. The couch cushions have been fluffed and repositioned, again. The throw blankets folded in a way that makes them look pretty, but entirely unusable. "She's moved everything, Trent. Even the thermostat is set to 74 now. You know I can't sleep when it's that warm." "That's just mom being mom," he laughs, dismissing my frustration with a wave of a hand. "She likes things a certain way." "So do I mutter, but he's already grabbing his keys to drive Diane to her weekly bridge game. The next morning, I wake up early, eager to enjoy my coffee in peace at the kitchen nook, my favorite spot where sunlight streams through the bay window, warming the small table where I used to sketch new design concepts. But Diane is already there, flipping through a magazine, my special mug in her hand. "Hope you don't mind," she says, without looking up. "This spot gets such lovely light in the morning." I stand there, coffeeless and displaced, watching as she occupies not just my favorite chair, but the entire essence of my morning ritual. This has become our unspoken dance. I carve out a small corner of existence, and Diane waltzes right into it, claiming it was always hers to begin with. Later that day, I discover she's reorganized my spice rack alphabetically rather than by frequency of use. The paprika now sits where my cinnamon used to be. My office chair has been adjusted to a height that makes my feet dangle. Even the curtains hang differently, tied back with decorative cords I've never seen before. "I thought I'd help tidy up a bit," she explains when I find her adjusting picture frames in the hallway. "This house has such potential." The implication hangs in the air. Under her care, not mine. I try to address it directly that evening, after a particularly frustrating discovery that she's rearranged my carefully organized linen closet. "Diane," I begin, my voice measured and calm, I appreciate your help, but I had a system for those towels. Oh. Her eyebrows rise slightly, her smile never reaching her eyes. This is your house, dear. But Trent and I have our rhythm. He's always preferred the towels folded in thirds, not halves. Our rhythm. As if they're the established couple, and I'm the interloper. The following week, I take our dog, Bailey, for his evening walk when I run into Leona, the retired teacher from 3 doors down. She's watering her immaculate rose bushes, but pauses when she sees me. How's the mother-in-law situation? She asks bluntly, having witnessed Diane's arrival months ago. Fine. I lie, tugging gently on Bailey's leash as he sniffs at her garden. She's still looking for her own place. Leona gives me a knowing look. I've seen this before, you know. Mothers-in-law don't always leave. My sister had one that stayed for 7 years. A cold dread washes over me. 7 years. Would have been longer if my sister hadn't moved out herself. Leona shrugs. Some women just can't let go of their sons. I laugh it off, but her words follow me home like a shadow. The next day, while I'm grocery shopping, Diane apparently decides to tidy my workspace. I return to find my sketches neatly stacked, my fabric samples organized by color rather than by client, and my sketchbook open on the desk. You have a good eye, she says when I freeze in the doorway. Though you used to be more creative before marriage, didn't you? I stare at her, wondering how she could possibly know what my work was like before I met Trent. Then I see it, my portfolio from design school, pulled from the storage bins in the garage. My private history laid bare and judged. Please don't touch my work supplies, I say, hating how small my voice sounds. Just admiring, she replies with that same cold smile. Trent always said you were talented. Such a shame you gave up that big firm job. I didn't give it up, I left to pursue my passion. But the way she says it makes my career choice sound like failure. That weekend, Trent and I had plans to visit a new exhibit at the Portland Art Museum, something we'd been looking forward to for weeks. At breakfast, however, he can't quite meet my eyes. About today, he begins, and I already know what's coming. Mom's church is having this bingo fundraiser thing, and she really wants to go. You promised, Trent. We haven't had a day out together in weeks. I know. But she doesn't know many people here yet, and she feels uncomfortable going alone. What about our plans? We can go to the museum anytime, right? It'll still be there next weekend. But next weekend becomes bingo again. The weekend after that, Diane needs help with her computer. Then it's driving her to meet old friends visiting from out of town. Our plans consistently dissolve in the face of Diane's needs. One night, after another canceled date, I find myself in what used to be my reading nook, now the guest room where I occasionally retreat when sleep eludes me. The small bookshelf that once housed my favorite novels has been replaced with Diane's collection of porcelain figurines. My soft throw pillows exchanged for decorative ones that serve no purpose but to look formal and untouched. I sit on the edge of the bed and finally allow myself to cry. Silent tears at first, then quiet sobs that shake my shoulders. I've lost more than just physical space. I've lost the feeling of belonging in my own home. The right to have opinions about dinner, decorations, or how to spend a Saturday afternoon. As I wipe my eyes, I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror, a woman I barely recognize anymore. Smaller, quieter, constantly apologetic. And in that moment, I realize just how much of myself I've already given away. The next morning, I wake up with puffy eyes but renewed determination. This is still my house, our house, and it's time to establish some boundaries. Over breakfast, I clear my throat nervously. I think we need some house rules. Trent looks up from his phone, confused. Diane pauses, fork midway to her mouth. What kind of rules? She asks, her tone suggesting I've just proposed something radical. Simple things, like asking before rearranging furniture or changing the settings on appliances. I try to keep my voice light, reasonable, just so we're all on the same page. You want my mother to ask permission to adjust the thermostat? Trent's eyebrows shoot up. Not permission, just communication. Diane places her fork down gently. If you're uncomfortable with me helping around the house, dear, You only had to say so. That's not. Cora, you're overreacting, Trent interrupts. Mom's just trying to make herself useful while she's here. I understand that, but let's drop it, okay? We don't need formal rules. We're family. Family. The word that's supposed to warm my heart now fills me with dread. 2 days later, I come home from a client meeting to find Diane organizing the hall closet. Among the items she's sorted into a donation pile is my grandmother's quilt, the one thing I have left from her. What are you doing? I rush forward, snatching up the faded fabric. This isn't for donation. Oh. Diane presses a hand to her chest in exaggerated surprise. I thought it was just old clutter. It looked so worn, and you never use it. It was my grandmother's. I've told you about this quilt. I clutch it to my chest, my heart racing with anger and fear. What else has she deemed disposable? Has it already been picked up? I ask, scanning the remaining boxes. The church volunteers came about an hour ago, she admits without a hint of remorse. But don't worry, it was mostly just those old magazines and some kitchen gadgets you never used. My recipe books. My vintage ice cream maker. My things. When I tell Trent about it later, his response is lukewarm at best. Mom didn't mean any harm. She was just cleaning. She donated my things without asking, Trent. Things that mattered to me. We can buy new stuff, Cora. It's not worth fighting over. But it isn't about the stuff. It's about respect. It's about the slow erosion of my presence in this house. And Trent can't, or won't see it. The following weeks bring more of the same. I start sleeping later, setting my alarm for after Trent leaves for work and Diane has finished her breakfast. The morning conversations have become unbearable. Diane and Trent reminiscing about family trips I wasn't part of, inside jokes I don't understand, all while my contributions to the conversation are politely acknowledged then swiftly forgotten. Every attempt to reclaim space is met with resistance. When I move a vase back to where I originally placed it, it reappears on Diane's preferred shelf the next day. When I cook using my own recipes, the leftovers mysteriously disappear rather than being enjoyed as second-day meals. Finally, after weeks of canceled plans, Trent agrees to a proper date night. I book reservations at our favorite restaurant, put on a dress I know he loves, and allow myself to feel hopeful for the first time in months. We're halfway through our appetizers, Trent actually engaging in conversation about something other than his mother or work, when his phone rings. It's Mom, he says, already answering. Hello? What? Are you okay? I watch his face transform from relaxed to concerned in seconds. We'll be right there, he says, already signaling for the check. Mom fell, he explains to me. She thinks she might have twisted her ankle. Did she call an ambulance? I ask, knowing the answer. She didn't want to bother emergency services for something minor. Come on, we need to go. When we arrive home, Diane is on the couch, her ankle propped up on a pillow, looking pained but composed. There's no visible swelling, no bruising. Just Diane, somehow managing to appear both fragile and triumphant. I'm so sorry to ruin your evening, she says with a martyred sigh. I just didn't know who else to call. It's fine, Mom. Let me get you some ice. I stand in the doorway, watching as my husband kneels before his mother, tenderly examining an injury I'm increasingly certain doesn't exist. The restaurant receipt crumples in my fist, another evening stolen. The next day, on my therapist's recommendation, I start journaling. Dr. Lambert has been helping me navigate the increasing tension at home, providing the validation my husband refuses to give. What you're experiencing is a form of emotional erasure, she told me during our last session. Your feelings and needs are being systematically dismissed. I write about the small indignities, how Diane accidentally used my expensive face cream as hand lotion, how she rearranged my bookshelves by color rather than genre, how she comments on the calories in my lunch while eating the cookies I baked. When I invite my sister Maisie over for dinner, hoping for an ally, Diane spends the entire evening monopolizing the conversation. You should see what I've done with the garden, she tells Maisie proudly, as if the sad little herb patch I'd started was her creation. Cora tries, bless her heart, but some people just don't have that green thumb. Maisie shoots me a concerned look over her wine glass. Later, as we wash dishes together, she whispers, "What the hell, Cora? How long has she been like this?" "Since she moved in, I admit." "Trent doesn't see it. Or doesn't want to," Maisie corrects. "Have you been direct with her?" "I haven't, not really. I've hinted and suggested and gently pushed back, but I've never confronted Diane head-on. The opportunity comes sooner than expected." The following day, I find Diane rearranging the photos on our bedroom dresser, removing a candid shot from our honeymoon and replacing it with a formal portrait of Trent in his graduation gown, his mother beaming beside him. "I'd prefer if you didn't change things in our bedroom," I say, my voice surprisingly steady. "I thought this photo captured Trent better," she replies, not bothering to look at me. "He has his father's smile in this one." "That's not the point. This is our private space." She turns then, her expression cool. "There's no need to be territorial, Cora. I'm just helping to make things nicer." "You're not helping. You're taking over." The words hang between us, the first direct confrontation in months of passive-aggressive warfare. "Taking over?" Her laugh is brittle. "This is my son's house too. I'm simply making it feel like home." "It was home before you arrived," I insist, heat rising to my cheeks. "You can't just come in and change everything to suit your taste." "My taste?" Her voice rises slightly. "I raised that boy sleeping in your bed. I know what he likes, what makes him comfortable. You might have married him, but I made him." I stare at her, finally seeing the truth beneath all the polite smiles and helpful suggestions. In Diane's eyes, I will always be the outsider, the temporary fixture in her son's life, while she, the mother, the creator, is permanent. That night, when Trent comes home, I tell him everything. The constant rearranging. The criticism thinly veiled as help. The way his mother has systematically pushed me to the edges of my own life. "I can't keep living like this," I conclude, tears of frustration streaming down my face. Something has to change. Trent sits across from me, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I think he finally understands. That he'll speak to his mother, set boundaries, remind her that this is our home, not hers. Instead, he sighs heavily and says the words that will change everything between us. "She raised me, Cora. She sacrificed everything for me. You..." He pauses, his eyes cold. "You can be replaced." The world stops. My husband, the man who promised to love and cherish me, has just informed me that I am disposable. Interchangeable. Secondary to the woman who birthed him. I don't argue. Don't cry. I simply take my keys and walk out to the car, where I sit in silence, hands trembling on the steering wheel. The evening air is cool against my skin, a stark contrast to the burning humiliation coursing through me. As I stare at our house, the curtains Diane chose, the porch light Diane selected, the welcome mat Diane picked out, something shifts inside me. The pain is still there, but alongside it, a strange clarity emerges. If I am so easily replaced, if my presence means so little, then what am I fighting for? A plan begins to form, not born of anger or revenge, but of cold, clear understanding. If Diane wants to be queen of this castle, if Trent wants his mother to rule their lives, then perhaps it's time I gave them exactly what they want. Every last bit of it. The transformation begins the very next day. I wake up early, slip out of bed without disturbing Trent, and start methodically removing my personal items from the living room. The throw pillows I'd hand-selected for their texture and warmth. The abstract painting from a local artist that Trent had always found too modern. The family photos where I'm centered rather than on the periphery. In their place, I carefully arrange Diane's decorative items. The crystal figurines she keeps wrapped in tissue paper, the formal family portraits in ornate frames, the doilies and table runners that remind me of a museum rather than a home. When Diane emerges from her room, she stops short, taking in the changes with wide eyes. "What's all this?" she asks, caution in her voice. "I thought you might like to see how your things look in the main space," I reply with a pleasant smile. "They really bring a certain character to the room." "They do look nice there," she admits, moving closer to adjust a figurine by a fraction of an inch. Actually, I continue, my voice light, I was thinking you might want to use the office as well. I've noticed you don't have a proper space to organize your paperwork. The office? But that's your workspace. I can move my drafting table to the garage. There's plenty of room, and you'd have privacy in the office. Her eyes narrow slightly, searching my face for sarcasm or resentment. Finding none, I've become quite skilled at the blank pleasantness she's perfected over the years, she smiles. Well, if you're sure you don't mind. Not at all. Your comfort is important. Over the next few days, I systematically cancel appointments with my freelance clients, citing a family situation that requires my attention. I move my design materials to the garage, transforming a corner of that cold space into a makeshift studio. I give Diane full use of the office, complete with a new desk chair that fits her height perfectly. Trent notices the changes but says little. He comes home one evening to find the living room temperature at a chilly 65 degrees, Diane's preferred setting, and pauses by the thermostat. It's freezing in here, he comments, reaching to adjust it. Your mother prefers it cooler for sleeping, I remind him. She says it helps with her circulation. But you hate the cold. I shrug, offering the same dismissive smile he's given me countless times. I can always wear a sweater. Slowly, methodically, I adjust every setting in the house to Diane's preferences. The cable channels are reorganized with her programs as favorites. The music system is programmed to play her classical stations rather than my indie rock. The kitchen is stocked with her preferred brands, arranged exactly as she likes them. I give her my favorite armchair without comment, hand her the TV remote without being asked, and leave the pantry keys on her side of the kitchen counter. Full control, just as she's always wanted. You're being very accommodating lately, Trent observes one night, a hint of suspicion in his voice. I'm trying to make things easier for everyone, I reply. Your mother knows what works best for this household. He accepts this without question, pleased by the apparent peace. The next phase of my plan requires his cooperation, though he doesn't realize its purpose. One evening, as he's paying bills online, I casually suggest updating the household accounts. Your mom is so much better at keeping track of these things, I say, echoing his own words back to him. Maybe we should add her name to some of the utilities? Just to make things simpler. That's actually not a bad idea, he agrees, surprised by my suggestion. She's always been good with money management. One by one, I help him transfer account access to Diane, the Wi-Fi, the streaming services, the grocery delivery. Each digital key handed over with a smile. As the house becomes increasingly Diane's domain, I retreat further into myself. I begin sleeping in the guest room again, claiming insomnia so as not to disturb Trent. Neither he nor Diane seems to notice my gradual absence from their daily routines. I take dinner in my garage studio more often than not, leaving them to their familiar conversations. From the outside, it appears I've surrendered completely. Diane certainly thinks so. Her smiles have grown warmer, her criticism less frequent. She moves through the house with the confidence of ownership, and I do nothing to challenge it. But inside, behind my pleasant mask, I am cataloging every decision, organizing legal documents, and preparing for the moment when the scales will tip completely. I speak less at family meals, offering only polite comments when addressed directly. I defer to Diane on household decisions without argument. I maintain a quiet, cordial distance that she mistakes for submission. You know, she tells me one afternoon as we fold laundry together, you've really settled in nicely these past few weeks. It just takes time to find your place in a family. My place. As if I am the one who needed to adapt, to fit into the space they decided to allocate to me. You've been very patient with me, I reply, the irony lost on her entirely. 3 weeks into my silent campaign, I make my final move. I commission a local woodworker to create a custom plaque. Nothing ostentatious, just a simple, elegant piece of maple with carefully burned lettering. When it arrives, wrapped in brown paper, I present it to Diane after dinner, while Trent is still at the table. What's this? She asks, genuinely surprised by the gift. Just a small token of appreciation, I explain as she unwraps it. The plaque reads, "Her house, her rules." Oh, Diane's eyes widen with delight. How thoughtful. Trent glances at it, then at me, a flicker of unease crossing his face. That's nice, he says slowly. I thought it could go by the front door, I suggest. So, everyone knows whose home they're entering. Absolutely. Diane agrees, already planning its placement. Right where people can see it when they come in. As she bustles off to find the perfect spot, Trent turns to me. What are you doing? He asks quietly. I meet his gaze with perfect calm. Giving your mother what she's always wanted, I reply. What you've always wanted. I never said. You didn't have to say it, Trent. You showed me. I stand and begin clearing the dishes, leaving him to wonder exactly what I mean and what comes next. The plaque hangs by our front door now. Her house, her rules. Every time I pass it, I feel a strange sense of peace rather than defeat. For weeks, I've been playing the long game, giving Diane the control she craved while quietly preparing for my exit. Today, I meet with Sarah Wilson, a patent attorney I found through a design colleague. She has no connection to Trent or his social circle, which is exactly what I need. The paperwork looks good, she says, sliding the final documents across her desk. Your design patent for the modular storage system will be fully transferred to Baker Home Solutions. The payment will be deposited directly into your new account. I developed the storage system 2 years ago while working with a furniture designer. Trent had dismissed it as a side project, never bothering to understand its market potential. Baker Home Solutions saw its value immediately. And Trent won't be notified of the sale? I confirm, signing where indicated.
No.
Since you registered the patent under your name before marriage, it's legally yours to sell. The funds will go to your private account, which we've established using your maiden name. As I leave her office, my phone buzzes with a text from Diane, using your good china for book club tonight. Hope that's okay. No question, just the pretense of asking permission. I text back, of course. Enjoy. 3 days later, I meet with another lawyer, this one specializing in real estate. The house Trent and I purchased was made possible by a substantial down payment from my inheritance, money left to me by my Aunt Catherine. It was her final gift, meant to help me build a life of my own. You understand what this means, Mr. Daniels says gravely. By transferring your portion of ownership to both Trent and Diane, you're relinquishing all claims to the property. I understand perfectly, I reply, signing the transfer deed with steady hands. The mortgage remains in place, he continues. But now both Trent and Diane will be legally responsible for it, as well as all associated property taxes and maintenance costs. That's exactly what I want. As I walk to my car, I feel lighter than I have in months. The house that once represented my dreams now symbolizes my cage. Letting it go is the first real breath I've taken since Diane moved in. That evening, I carefully shred all documentation of my meetings, burying the fragments deep in the recycling bin. The only record of these transactions exists in my secure email and with my lawyers. The next steps happen incrementally, too subtle for either Trent or Diane to notice. I change my name back to Cora Mitchell on my driver's license, claiming to the DMV that I never officially changed it after marriage. I update my professional profiles online, listing myself as Cora Mitchell, formerly Andrews. I redirect my business mail to a P.O. box rather than our home address. When Diane comments on the mail, I smile and say, just reducing paper waste. Our wedding anniversary arrives on a Tuesday. 5 years together, though the last one barely qualifies as a partnership. I wait all day for some acknowledgement from Trent, a text, a call, even a hastily purchased card. Nothing comes. Instead, at dinner, Diane says, "Oh, Trent, did you remember to pick up those flowers for me? The peonies I mentioned." "Got them this morning," he replies, producing a bouquet from behind his chair. "Your favorite." Diane beams, arranging them in what used to be my grandmother's vase. "You've always been so thoughtful, even as a little boy." I watch this exchange in silence, noting how Trent glances my way only after the flowers have been displayed. There's confusion in his eyes, then dawning horror as he realizes what day it is. "Cora, The salmon is getting cold, I interrupt pleasantly. Diane, would you like more white wine? The evening passes in a blur of mundane conversation. After dinner, Trent attempts to pull me aside, but I'm already gathering my keys. Where are you going? He asks, his voice tinged with desperation. The Wilsons are hosting a dinner party for local designers. I explain, a believable lie since I'd mentioned the possibility weeks ago. I told you last week. He hadn't been listening, of course. He never does. But we need to talk about. I'm already running late. We can talk tomorrow. There is no dinner party. Instead, I drive to Maisie's apartment across town, where I spend the evening drinking wine and finalizing details of my plan. You're really going through with this? Maisie asks, her concern evident. I have to, I reply. You haven't seen how it's been. I saw enough at that dinner. But are you sure about giving them the house? You put so much into it. The house stopped being mine the day Diane moved in. I'm just making it official. I return home late, long after Trent and Diane have gone to bed. As I pass the plaque by the door, her house, her rules, I trace the letters with my fingertip, a farewell gesture to the life I'd tried to build. The next evening is Diane's monthly bridge club dinner, which she's insisted on hosting since moving in. Women from her church group gather in our dining room, exclaiming over the decor Diane has selected, complimenting the food Diane has chosen, though I cooked it, admiring the house Diane has arranged. You've done wonders with the place, one woman says, clearly directing her comment to Diane rather than me. It's amazing what a mother's touch can add to a home, Diane replies, shooting me a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. I excuse myself early, claiming a headache. No one notices when I slip out the front door, overnight bag already stashed in my car. At Maisie's, I finish writing the letter I've been drafting for days. Not a manifesto of grievances or a bitter farewell, but a clear-eyed assessment of what our marriage became.
Trent.
By the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not temporarily, not to make a point, but permanently. I've realized something these past months. A marriage can't survive when one person is perpetually secondary. You said I could be replaced. The truth is, I already was, the moment your mother moved in, and you chose her comfort over our partnership. I've transferred my portion of the house to both of you. It's legally yours now, as it has functionally been since Diane arrived. All utilities and accounts have been updated to reflect this change. You'll find the necessary documentation with this letter. I don't hate you. I don't even blame you anymore. We simply want different things. You want a life where your mother comes first, and I want a life where I matter. I wish you both well in the home you've created together.
Cora.
I seal the envelope, along with copies of the property transfer documents and updated account information. Tomorrow morning, while they sleep, I'll leave it all on the breakfast table and walk away from the life that no longer fits me. That night, as I lie on Maisie's pull-out sofa, I don't cry. For the first time in months, I sleep deeply and dreamlessly, unburdened by the weight of trying to exist in spaces that were never meant for me. Dawn breaks clear and bright. I drive home one last time, timing my arrival for when I know both Trent and Diane will still be asleep. The house is quiet, the breakfast dishes from yesterday still in the sink. Evidence of the bridge party litters the dining room. Wine glasses, napkins, crumbs of dessert. I move silently through rooms that once held my hopes. In the bedroom, Trent sleeps alone, his face troubled even in rest. I don't linger. The last item in my car is a small box of irreplaceable treasures, photos from before Diane, the few pieces of my grandmother's jewelry I inherited, the sketchbooks containing my earliest designs. Everything else I'm leaving behind. In the kitchen, I place the envelope on the table, securing it with a small stone paperweight. Next to it, I leave the deed to the house, with a yellow post-it note that reads simply, "Everything she wanted. Yours to enjoy." I take one final look around, remembering how excited I'd been the day we moved in, how full of possibility everything had seemed. Then I walk out the door, closing it softly behind me. As I drive away, I catch a glimpse of the house in my rearview mirror. The curtains Diane selected hang in the windows. The garden Diane rearranged lines the walkway. The mailbox with both our last names stands at the curb, soon to be changed, no doubt. I don't look back again. Hours later, as I'm settling into the studio apartment I'd secretly leased last week, my phone begins to buzz with notifications.
First Trent, then Diane.
I silence it, focusing instead on the empty walls around me, the blank canvas they represent. According to Maisie, who still lives in the neighborhood, Diane burst into laughter when she first found my note, thinking it was some kind of joke. The laughter died when Trent showed her the deed, the account transfers, the legal reality of what I'd done. You should have seen her face, Maisie tells me over the phone that evening. When she realized all those utilities she's been controlling are now her financial responsibility. Priceless. And Trent.
Confused.
Then angry. Then panic-stricken when he realized how much of the household you actually managed. He called your old office looking for you. I've already informed my clients of my new contact information and business name. The few who were still with me during my retreat to the garage have followed without question, relieved to see me reclaiming my professional identity. They'll figure it out, I say, though I'm not entirely convinced. Neither Trent nor Diane had paid much attention to the practical aspects of running a household. The mortgage, the property taxes, the maintenance issues I'd quietly handled, all of it now squarely in their unprepared laps. As I unpack my few belongings in my new space, I realize I'm humming, something I haven't done in months. The studio is small but full of natural light. The hardwood floors need refinishing, the kitchen appliances are outdated, and the bathroom's sink drips. It's absolutely perfect. The first week in my new studio passes in a blur of practical matters. I repaint the walls a soft sage green, refinish the worn hardwood floors, and replace the dripping faucet. Each task feels like reclaiming a piece of myself, decisions made solely by me, for me. My phone continues to buzz with messages from Trent, gradually shifting from confused to angry to pleading. I read them but don't respond. Diane calls once, leaving a voicemail full of barely contained fury and accusations of abandonment. I delete it without finishing. By week 2, I've established a new routine. Mornings begin with coffee by my single window, watching the neighborhood come alive. My drafting table sits in the corner where light is best, and my laptop occupies a small desk against the opposite wall. It's modest but functional, a designer's space rather than a showpiece. I restart my business with intention, contacting former clients with my updated information. Most remember me from before my marriage, when my work had more edge, more personality. 3 signed contracts within days. It's good to have the old Cora back, one tells me over coffee. Your recent work was beautiful, but it felt restrained somehow. I hadn't realized how visible my diminishment had been to others. How the constant compromise had seeped into my professional aesthetic as well as my personal boundaries. In my 3rd week of freedom, I visit the local animal shelter. I've always wanted a dog, but Diane's alleged allergies made it impossible. Now, as I walk between kennels, a small brown mutt with mismatched ears and intelligent eyes catches my attention. That's Rusty, the volunteer tells me. He's been here a while. People usually want puppies or purebreds. Rusty tilts his head, studying me with the same careful assessment I'm giving him. A kindred spirit who knows what it's like to be overlooked. He's perfect, I say, and sign the adoption papers that afternoon. Having Rusty forces me into a more regular schedule. Morning walks, evening playtime, consistent meals. The structure helps anchor me as I rebuild my life brick by brick. He sleeps at the foot of my bed, a warm presence that asks nothing of me except basic care and affection. 1 month after my departure, Trent begins calling more frequently. I finally answer on a rainy Tuesday morning. Cora, he breathes, relief evident in his voice. Thank God. We need to talk. I said everything I needed to in my letter. I reply, keeping my tone neutral. You can't just walk away from 5 years of marriage. I didn't. I walked away from what our marriage had become. He sighs heavily. It's been difficult. The house doesn't run itself, you know. Of course, that's his concern. Not my well-being, not the breakdown of our relationship, but the practical inconvenience of my absence. You'll figure it out, I say, echoing my words to Maisie. You're both adults. The mortgage payment was due yesterday, he continues, his voice strained. And the property tax notice came. It's more than I expected. All the information was in the envelope I left. Cora, please. Just come home, and we can sort this out. I'll talk to Mom about giving you more space. The request is so tone-deaf, so completely missing the point, that I almost laugh. This isn't about space, Trent. It's about respect. Value.
Partnership.
Things you and Diane took from me piece by piece. That's not fair. No, it wasn't. That's why I left. I end the call before he can respond, my hands steady, my resolve intact. Later that week, I receive a text from Leona, my former neighbor. So, your Mael just asked me for Wi-Fi help. I said no. I smile at the small vindication. Diane, who criticized my unnecessarily complicated network setup, now struggling to maintain the very systems I'd managed without acknowledgement. A follow-up text comes moments later. She also complained about the water bill. Said you never mentioned how expensive utilities are in this neighborhood. Because Diane had never bothered to ask. Had never considered that maintaining a household required more than rearranging furniture and criticizing meals. Week 6 brings a more surprising development. According to Maisie, who still keeps tabs on the situation, Diane has become overwhelmed by the responsibilities she once critiqued. She tried hosting her bridge club again, Maisie reports over lunch. But apparently the house was a mess. One of the women told my friend Beth that there were dishes piled in the sink and dust on everything. Trent's not helping? Trent's working longer hours. Probably trying to cover the mortgage payments. Turns out accounting skills don't translate to homemaking. I feel a twinge of something. Not quite guilt, not quite satisfaction. Just the recognition that systems have consequences when they collapse. By month 3, my business has expanded enough to hire a part-time assistant. My portfolio is growing, featuring designs that reflect my rekindled creativity rather than safe, crowd-pleasing choices. I've even been approached about teaching a workshop at the community college, Authentic Space, designing for the life you actually live. The irony isn't lost on me. On a crisp Saturday morning, as Rusty and I walk through the farmer's market, I run into Beth Wilson, one of Diane's church friends. Cora, I haven't seen you in ages, she exclaims, then lowers her voice. We've all been wondering what happened. I moved on. I reply simply. Well, things aren't going well at the house, she confides, clearly eager to share gossip. Diane seems completely overwhelmed. And Trent. She shakes her head. He looks terrible, like he hasn't slept in weeks. I make a non-committal sound, selecting tomatoes from a nearby stand. And now Diane's talking about finding her own place again, Beth continues. Says the house is too much for her to manage. Isn't that something? After all this time? It is something. The very scenario Trent had promised months ago, his mother finding her own place, finally materializing after I removed myself from the equation. As Beth chatters on, I reflect on how differently this might have played out if Trent had supported me from the beginning. If Diane had respected boundaries. If I had been valued as an equal partner rather than a replaceable convenience. A week later, Maisie visits my apartment for the first time, bringing housewarming wine and curiosity. This place suits you, she declares, surveying the small but thoughtfully arranged space. You look like yourself again. Do I? I'm not sure I recognize that person anymore. I do. She's the same stubborn, creative force who refused to let our parents pick her college major. Who moved to Portland with nothing but a sketchbook and determination. Maisie smiles. She just got lost for a while. That evening, after Maisie leaves, I receive an email from a local women's organization. They're hosting a panel discussion on financial independence after relationship transitions and want me to speak about my experience rebuilding a business. The invitation surprises me. I hadn't thought of myself as an example for others. But as I read through the details, I realized my story might actually help someone else recognize the small erosions before they become complete collapse. I accept the invitation. 5 months after my departure, the final pieces of my old life fall away. According to Maisie, Diane has indeed moved out of the house, claiming the stairs are too difficult for her knees. She's found a senior living apartment across town. Ironically, the very solution that should have happened when her lease initially ended. Trent, unable to maintain the mortgage payments alone, has listed the house for sale. The real estate photos online show empty walls where my art once hung, sparse furniture where I once created comfort, blank spaces where life used to exist. As I scroll through the listing on my laptop, Rusty resting his head on my knee, I feel a strange sense of closure. The house that was supposed to be our forever home now stands as a shell, waiting for new dreams to fill it. I close the browser and turn instead to my current project, a comprehensive redesign for a family who values each member's input. The parents have insisted that their children's preferences be incorporated, that every person who lives in the space should see themselves reflected in it. It's the kind of project I would have once considered challenging. Now I recognize it as essential. 6 months since I walked away from a marriage that diminished me. 6 months of rebuilding, rediscovering, and reclaiming. The studio apartment has become truly mine, plants thriving in the windows, design projects covering the walls, Rusty's bed tucked in the corner of the living room. On a Tuesday morning, while sorting through emails, I find one from Trent. The subject line reads simply, "I understand now." My finger hovers over the delete button, but curiosity wins out. Cora, I've been trying to write this email for weeks. Nothing sounds right. Nothing can undo what happened between us. The house sold yesterday. Mom's been in her new place for almost a month. I'm moving to a smaller apartment closer to work. I didn't see it. How Mom pushed you out, how I let it happen, how I chose her comfort over our marriage. I see it now, living alone, realizing all you did, all you were to our home.
I'm sorry.
Not because I need you back or because life is harder without you, but because you deserved better than what I gave you. I hope you're finding your way back to yourself.
Trent.
I read it twice, searching for manipulation or self-pity. Finding none, I closed the email without responding. His awakening is his own journey now, separate from mine. Later that week, while scrolling through social media, I noticed Diane has posted a lengthy status update, clearly visible to mutual connections despite her having unfriended me months ago. Just a reminder that family should always come first. It begins. It's so sad when daughters-in-law forget the women who raised their husbands. #ungrateful, #family values. Maisie sends a screenshot with a series of eye-roll emojis. Want me to comment? Don't bother, I reply. It's not worth the energy. And it truly isn't. Diane's bitterness can't touch me anymore. Not my peace, not my rebuilt confidence, not my reclaimed space. Her words are just pixels on a screen, as insubstantial as her promises to find her own place had been. The following weekend, I drive to a local charity shop with a box of final items from my old life. Among them, wrapped carefully in tissue paper, is the wooden plaque, "Her house, her rules." "Are you sure you want to donate this?" the volunteer asks. "It looks handmade." "I'm sure," I reply. "It belongs to a different story now." As the woman places it on a shelf, I feel the last weight lift from my shoulders. Let someone else find it, perhaps see it as quirky decor rather than the surrender it once symbolized. Back at my apartment, I water my growing collection of houseplants, including a small potted herb garden on the windowsill. I've named the basil plant Gracie, after my grandmother, the woman who taught me that strength often looks like quiet persistence rather than loud defiance. "You'd have left sooner," I tell the plant, remembering Grandma Grace's practical wisdom. "And you'd have taken the good china with you." My design business continues to flourish. At a home expo in Seattle, I present a concept for adaptable living spaces, homes that evolve as families change, with built-in flexibility rather than rigid definitions. What inspired this approach? A fellow designer asks during the networking event afterward. The recognition that homes should serve the people who live in them, I reply. Not the other way around. As we discuss material innovations, I notice a man listening intently from the edge of our group. When the conversation shifts, he introduces himself as James, an architect specializing in sustainable urban housing. I appreciated your perspective on adaptable spaces, he says. Most designers focus on aesthetics first, function second. Form follows function, I reply. But both should follow the actual humans who inhabit the space. We exchange business cards and a genuine smile, not the beginning of anything specific, just a moment of professional connection that feels refreshingly equal. The following month, James emails about a potential collaboration on a community housing project. The initial meeting leads to coffee discussions about design philosophy, which gradually evolve into conversations about books, music, and eventually personal histories. Unlike Trent, James listens when I speak. He asks questions because he's interested in the answers, not because he's waiting for his turn to talk. The slow, careful building of trust feels like designing a foundation, methodical but essential. By month 8 of my new life, I've moved to a larger apartment with a proper office space. Rusty has a small yard to enjoy, and my client list has grown enough to support hiring a second assistant. The community housing project with James has received preliminary approval, and our professional relationship has deepened into a friendship with potential for more. One afternoon, while walking Rusty through my old neighborhood, something I rarely do, I passed by the house Trent and I shared. New owners have painted the door a bright yellow and planted wildflowers where Diane's structured rose bushes once stood. Children's bikes lean against the porch, and the sound of laughter drifts through open windows. The house looks happy, I realize.
Lived in. Loved.
I feel no jealousy, no sense of loss, just appreciation that spaces can heal as much as people can. That evening, as I sit by my window with coffee in hand, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and pink, I reflect on the journey of the past year. The small erosions that became a landslide, the painful clarity that led to necessary endings, the quiet rebuilding that followed. I gave Diane everything she wanted: a house to rule, a son to control, a life arranged to her specifications. And in doing so, I kept everything I truly needed: my dignity, my creativity, my power to choose. The coffee tastes perfect. The evening air feels cool against my skin. Rusty snores softly at my feet. My sketchbook lies open on the table, filled with ideas and possibilities. And for the first time in years, nothing needs to change. What would you sacrifice to reclaim your worth? Sometimes walking away isn't giving up. It's the first step toward finding yourself again. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below for more stories of quiet strength and personal redemption.